People say that the hardest part about losing a loved one are the things that remind you of them. And it's true. It is hard to escape the loss when wherever you turn you see them. These were the thoughts that plagued me while I was packing up my father's study in our old home. He had passed away a few months ago, and having no other children, the responsibility to handling his affairs fell on me. We had been really close growing up, and even as I went to college and left home, our bond never broke. I had always looked up to my father growing up. I mean, having a dad who worked at NASA was every kid's dream. I couldn't say he was an astronaut though. He was the head of archives and data management. This means that my father and his team were responsible for reviewing all audio and video files of the rovers and drones that were sent back from expeditions. To others, it may have seemed boring, and I loved the stories he would tell me. As I got older, I started to realize they weren't exactly true, but it put a smile on my face nonetheless. I was packing up the files and such that he kept in his desk when I noticed that the bottom of one of the drawers was loose. Upon closer inspection, I saw that it was a false bottom, and removing it revealed a USB and a note card that simply read, "Do not watch." It was odd that my father would have something like this. He never mentioned anything like it, and he wasn't the type to keep secrets. Curiosity getting the better of me, I decided to ignore the warning and plug the USB into my laptop. It took a few seconds for the video to load, and when it did, nothing interesting was shown. The first 5 minutes or so of the video showed nothing but a black screen, with a strange sound being transmitted. I was about to turn it off, when finally the camera picked something up. There were these small specks of light dancing on what I thought to be the air, but quickly realized they were plankton, and that a drone must be on the water somewhere. The drone continued on, twisting and turning through what looked to be a tunnel. All the while, the sound becoming louder, a high-pitched whine that gave me goosebumps. Finally, the drone emerged out of the sea into an underwater cavern lined with bioluminescent algae, which showed the shape of something. The drone stopped its camera, pointing at the thing as if the two were locked in an intense staring contest. Then, the drone turned on its lights, and this creature was shown to me. The only thing I could say for certain about it was the color of its skin. It had this gray pigment which made it almost identical to the wall behind it. The light bounced off its eyes, turning otherwise black void into two burning holes of amber. Aside from this, I wasn't able to process anything else. Its shape was always changing and shifting. Once I thought I got a grasp on its form, it slinked into another. It hurt my head to look at it, and the screeching it made only got worse once entering the cave. The sound sent chills through my entire body, as if I was submerged underwater during the coldest months of winter. While it was hard to make out through the audio feed, an agonizing wail came through the speakers of my computer that made the hairs on my neck stand at attention. It unsettled me, not because the sound itself was unsettling, but because it wasn't. The more I listened, the more beautiful and sad the sound became. I could feel myself being drawn in by its melody, like the sailors who crashed their ships into the rocks just to catch a glimpse of the siren song. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn the video off, to smash my computer if I had to. But I couldn't. Its pain was too enticing. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I struggled to breathe. How could a creature so massive and terrifying be in so much pain? Who had heard it, and how can I help? I found myself asking these questions, sympathizing with this behemoth, this abomination. I wanted to think of something else, anything else, but its howling kept drawing me back in. I began to wonder how I could get to him, what far-off planet he was from, and what I could do to help. He was suffering. He was in pain. Could my pain help free him? Just as the thought entered my mind, I felt sweat begin to pour down onto my chin. A few drops at first, then more. Before long, a steady stream of sweat was pooling on the table. It wasn't sweat though. It was water. Like a slap to the face, I suddenly realized that I couldn't breathe. This briny salty water was pouring out of my mouth, clogging the passage of air and leaving me lightheaded. The wailing of his song was reaching a crescendo as I frantically tried to find a way to stop the water. But with a grim acceptance, I realized there was none. I couldn't move anymore. My body remained frozen in place. As my vision began to fade, I accepted my fate, letting my mind wander through the notes of his song. I had to listen to him, and now I was his. I would become yet another soul for him to claim, another chink in the chains that confined him to the depths. My sacrifice will bring him one step closer to freedom. I will happily offer myself to him, if it means our Savior can walk this earth again. He is power. He is inevitable. He is almighty. He... Suddenly, I realized I could breathe again as I gasped for air, taking deep breaths. Never in my life had I been so happy to breathe. And while taking a moment to situate myself, I realized the sound the creature was making was gone. Looking down, I saw the table covered in water. And as such, my computer had been fried. It was still spasming when I came out of whatever trance that noise had put me in. To say I was terrified would be an understatement. My body was still cold and shaking, and I could still taste the salt in my mouth. As much as this scared me though, it paled in comparison to what I had learned. Before the screeching of the creature took effect on me, I noticed something in the top right corner of the screen. There was a coordinate from where the drone was sent. 17.31 degrees north, 87.53 degrees west. This thing wasn't on some distant planet in some faraway galaxy. It was on Earth, located in the underwater pit we call the Great Blue Hole. And with every person that falls victim to that incessant noise, it comes closer to being able to leave its prison. This creature will eventually escape. And I only pray that I am no longer here when it does. After the events of the day, I decided that some rest would do me good. So after choking down some greasy fast food, I tried to get some shut-eye. I should have known that it wouldn't be that easy. Ever since watching the video, the sound the creature made kept playing over and over in my mind, like a music track that just kept repeating. It was driving me mental because it wasn't finished. Every time it sounded like it was reaching the end, it would start again with a screeching insistence. That wasn't all though. Every time I tried to close my eyes, I was greeted with the image of that thing. Its incomprehensible form, always shifting and slinking, made sure I never found peace. After God knows how long, I decided enough was enough, and I made my way into the kitchen. I wasn't the drinking type. My father always said that the only use booze had was a quick way to an early grave. But if I'm being honest, that wouldn't be the worst thing right now. So after finding a half-empty bottle of whiskey in the back of one of the cupboards, I drank it until there was nothing left. Then, sleep came easy to me. Looking back, I'm not sure if that was a good thing though. Waking up inside of a dream is unnerving, but waking up inside of a nightmare is something I wouldn't wish upon anyone. With consciousness finding me, I immediately knew where I was, having looked at the same bioluminescent algae just hours before from the safety of my computer screen. The sound wasn't present either. Not that it mattered though, because even in this dream, I still had it playing in my mind, over and over again. The cavern was a bit different though. It was completely submerged in water, and I felt the panic begin to set in again as I realized I could not move. I remained still, helplessly staring at the creature in front of me, as if I was the drone that was sent here all those years ago. For better or for worse, the dream seemed to provide me with a bit of clarity on the creature's form. While the innermost parts were incomprehensible, its outer layer was clear, and I saw that the gray skin it had was actually made up of thousands of smaller creatures. They resemble a leech in size, but their movements were unnatural, moving all together as if they all shared one mind. They seemed to connect to one another like links in a chain, forming ligaments and tendons stretching across and around the creature to provide structure. They came together and moved apart to form appendages, changing shape on a whim as if receiving dozens of different requests and trying their best to keep up with the demand. Then, all at once, they stopped. Standing so still, I wasn't sure if they were even moving to begin with. And the creature spoke to me. It didn't use words. It didn't need to. We were connected now, and it could share its thoughts and ideas with ease. It expressed its disappointments in me that I didn't allow it to finish its song. I tried to express that it wasn't my fault, that the water had fried my computer, and that I would have let him finish if I could. Upon hearing this, enraged with me for suggesting his gifts were the cause of my incompetence. He was right. I should have been more careful. I felt the water around me begin to heat, and my skin grew hot. I saw my hands and exposed flesh on my arms start to blister, and soon bubbles of skin began to form. If I could scream, I would have, but my body was no longer my own. It belonged to him, and he did not want me to make a sound. I begged and pleaded with him, expressing my regret and sorrow, asking how I could make it up to him. This seemed to calm him, and the water around me began to cool. He answered my question and told me that I could spread his song, share it to those who would otherwise never hear it. At this, I felt my heart sink, and with much regret, told him that I couldn't, because I don't know how the song ended. As if on cue, his song that had been playing in my head looped back to the beginning, and I winced. I hadn't noticed it until now, but the longer I stayed here, the louder his song got, and it was beginning to hurt. My response seemed to amuse him, and he informed me that he would be giving me one last gift in order to complete my task. I was ecstatic. I would be receiving another gift from him. He thought that I was worthy even after I had said such cruel things about him. He was a benevolent creature, and I was sure to tell him that, which seemed to please him. The leeches that encased his form began to connect again to form a long tentacle that began reaching out to me. If I had been awake, this may have frightened me, but after being forgiven by him, all fear had left me. Once the appendage made contact, it was the best feeling in the world. I could feel my mind expanding to house all the knowledge he had given me. I could hear him singing again, that sad and mournful tone that had me feeling intense pity for him. With each note, I was given a snapshot of what he had to offer, what he could do. I saw him raising an empire with each person entranced by his song, rooted in place as the leeches infested their bodies. I saw men, women and children alike lining up to offer their bodies as sustenance for his accession. With my help, I can free him again, turn this hellscape of a planet to the paradise he can deliver. With that, he finished the song I could finally spread it to the masses and bring out his wish. My father would be so proud. I had finally accomplished something amazing. I found myself wishing that he was here to see me now. He would be proud, wouldn't he? Why would he hide this in the first place? Did he not want it to be found? Is this dangerous? What am I doing? Why does my chest hurt? Am I dying? These questions began to flood my brain, piercing through the melody of this creature sound. Looking down, I saw the creature's appendage was impaled in my chest. The pain was unbearable, and I noticed that the leeches were making their way into the wound. I realized that I had fallen prey to that song it put me in again. Suddenly, it let out a terrifying screech, a mixture of unbridled rage and agony. But before anything else could happen, I woke up. I wished that I could say that was just a bad dream caused by seeing a horrible video and drinking half a bottle of whiskey, but I knew that wasn't the case. My clothes in bed were soaked in salt water, and my arms were burnt and bubbled like they had been in the dream. Not only that, but my chest hurt like never before. There was no open wound, but upon looking in the mirror, I could see a circular scar that hadn't been there before. More than any of that though, that song is playing in my head still, getting louder with each completed loop. I could feel the leeches making their way through my body, and with each repetition of the song, the urge to spread it gets harder to ignore. It was then that I came to the conclusion of what I had to do. I'm not sure what broke the spell in that dream. I could argue that it was the love I had for my father, but the truth is, I don't know. I stumbled into the kitchen, each step painful, causing the leeches to move further into my body. I opened the stove and turned the gas on. I know you guys want me to look for more files that my father may have left of this creature, but the less you know, the better. Trust me, this is going to be my last post. I can't let anyone else hear this song. I thought I should at least let you guys know what happened to me. And I'm sorry for not being stronger. I have decided to let this house burn to the ground. And hopefully, more information regarding this creature will be buried away with me. Please, be careful if you ever go out on the ocean. And if you hear a long, painful tune, pray that it is only the wind.